Good evening, all, and hello to all my dear friends. Hope you all are doing wonderful. Today, I am going to discuss about the second chapter of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is the book, my dear friend, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Remember, if you remember last time, or 1 month back, we discussed the chapter 1 of the part 1. The part 1 is fundamental techniques of handling people, and under this part 1 we discussed chapter 1, and it is if you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. We discussed this chapter at length, and what was the message this chapter gave? The message this chapter gave was that we mustn't criticize, condemn, or complain anyone against anyone. Right? We should not criticize anybody, neither we should condemn anybody, or neither we should complain against anybody or anything. Right? So that is the message we got from the chapter 1, right? And today we are going to do chapter 2 of this part 1 section, fundamental techniques of handling people. Under that we are going to discuss chapter 2, and it is called the big secret of dealing with people. The big secret of dealing with people. Now I will sometimes refer to the book as well, and as I will read out phrases from the book. And so basically what we are doing here is we are trying to I'm trying to tell you what's there in the book. Right? I'm trying to go through the chapter, but in a very shorter format. I will be telling you what's there in this chapter and what could be the key takeaways that we can inculcate in our life from these chapters. Right? So in the first chapter, we inculcated or we learned that we should not criticize anybody, we should not condemn anybody, and we should not complain against anything or anybody. Right? That was the lesson. So there is another video I have done in the past. You might go and look into that. I'll put that link of the first video in this particular under the description section. So coming to the second chapter. The second chapter says the big secret of dealing with people. The big secret of dealing with people. Right? So dealing with people, very, very important point, and very important in our day-to-day life. Right? Not only in the workplace, but also in our personal life. Right? Dealing with people everywhere. You go to do you go for example, you have purchased a house. Right? You have to some paperworks are to be done. Right? So you have to go to the office for that. You need let's say you need a passport. You have to go to the passport office and you have to talk to the people over there. Right? So anything important, you are purchasing a house, so you will need to go and do all the house all the agreements and everything with the people, with the required people, and you will need to talk to them. Right? Any legal things, you will have to talk to people. Right? And interacting with people in day-to-day affairs is very important everywhere. For example, the domestic help that comes to our house, right? That also there is we need to deal with them as well. For example, we go to a hotel to eat a sumptuous meal, and there also we need to interact with the people as well. Right? We need to tell the waiter what kind of the food that we want, and that person is going to bring that kind of food. He will take the order. So there is an interaction. So in our day-to-day life, we have interaction with many people. Right? We have interaction with several people, and without people, we cannot stay isolated. Right? No man is an island. So everywhere we need to deal with people. Right? So what is the big secret then of dealing with people? Because that is something which we cannot negate. We cannot negate dealing with people, because they are part and parcel of our existence. Right? So then how should we better deal with people? Right? So in this chapter, we will explore that concept, that how to deal with people in the best possible manner. Yeah. So what can give me the best possible output? Right? So it's a very big topic. It's not a small thing. Right? Reading people is not easy. Right? Because 1 plus 1 is always not is not 11, As I told to you in the past, in the chapter 1 plus 1 cannot be 11 every time when you deal with people. 1 plus 1 cannot always be 2. 1 plus 1 can also mean 11. 1 plus 1 can also mean 3 as well, right? Because it is a subjective topic. Dealing with people is a subjective topic. There is no there is no objectivity. There's very less objectivity to it, right? We don't know what output we are going to get. We can give an input, but output will vary from people to people, right? Every people might not give the same output. Every people might not respond to the same stimuli that you gave, right? There is a difference. Understanding and appreciating the difference is very important, right? So let's delve into the chapter and let's try to understand what author Dale Carnegie says in the second chapter, The Big Secret of Dealing with People, right? Okay. So, in this chapter, what basically the author is saying, the author starts with by saying that about a philosopher, Sigmund Freud, a very important philosopher, and in the early 19th century philosopher Sigmund Freud, and he says that, and what Sigmund Freud said, that everything you and I do. Everything you and I do, it springs from two motives. Everything that you and I do springs from two motives. And what are those two motives? Those two motives, number one motive is the sex urge, the urge of sex, number one. And number two is the desire to be great. Right? So, what are the two motives? What Sigmund Freud said? Sigmund Freud said the first motive is the sex urge, and the second motive is the desire to be great. Just like Sigmund Freud, there's another American philosopher called John Dewey, right? And what does John Dewey says? The John Dewey says that the deepest urge in human nature, the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. The deepest urge in the human nature is the desire to be important, right? So you see, there is some kind of correspondence between what Sigmund Freud is saying and what John Dewey is saying. Sigmund Freud is saying that one of the motives is the desire to be great, right? And John Dewey is saying the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important, right? So this is very important. This concept is to be understood, right? And so basically, if we see around our around us, in the vicinity, in the neighborhood, in the society, if we look around, what do we see? What do we see? What are the common needs and wants of the people? If we have to see, what are the most common things that people wants? What are the most common things that people wants, my dear friend? The most common thing that people wants are health, right? Health, food, right? Sleep, health, food, sleep, life in the hereafter, money, right? Money is a very important point. Sexual gratification, my dear friend, sexual gratification, one of the most important thing. Next, well-being of our children, a feeling of importance, So 8 important things. I repeat: health, food, sleep, money, life in the hereafter, sexual gratification, the well-being of our children, and a feeling of importance. Right? 8 things, most common things. These 8 things are the most common things that people wants. Most of the people wants. Right? So almost all these things can be fulfilled. Almost all these things are usually gratified, right? But except one thing, which Freud calls the desire to be great, and Dewey calls the desire to be important, right? And that is the last point that I discussed: a feeling of importance. So almost all the things are gratified except this particular part, a feeling of importance, right? So So this is the chief difference between a human and an animal, my dear friend. The chief difference between a human and an animal is that there is a desire for the feeling of importance. The human has a desire for the feeling of importance. Humans like to feel important. In animals, we don't see that trait. Right? That is the fundamental difference between a human and an animal. The desire for the feeling of importance. Right? For example, we see people wants to win a prize, right? We see day to day like winning a gold medal, winning world championship titles, right? Why do people have the urge to win the prize? Why do people have the urge to win the titles? Why do they have that urge? They have that urge because they want, after winning, they want that medal or the trophy to show it to their near and dear ones. They want to show it to their near and dear ones. And why they want to show it to their near and dear ones, their acquaintances? Because by showing that, they get a feeling of importance. My dear friend, they get a feeling of importance, right? Which is the basic craving that every human being possesses, that every human being wants, that I should feel important. I must feel important. And that is every person's, inside every person, that feeling rests. Sometimes it comes out in the open, sometimes it remains dormant in an individual, right? Now, talking about civilization, how this civilization is possible. The civilization is possible because we have lots of innovation, right? We have wheel, we had fire, right? We had helicopters, we had aeroplanes, we had railway lines, we have test tube babies, right? So we have so many inventions and discoveries. We have ballpoint pen, right? We have television, we have refrigerator, right? Name anything. We have computers, right? Name anything, and everything needs innovation. And with every new thing gets invented, we say that the civilization is taking the next level. Civilization is moving forward. And how this civilization is possible? This civilization is possible because every human being who is involved in this innovation activities has a desire to feel important, has a desire to feel relevant in the society. And that is primarily the reason why they are trying to innovate new things, why they are trying to build new things, because they want to make their mark in the society. They want people to know about them. They want people to know that such and such person invented the radio, such and such person invented the television, such and such person invented the flying machine or the helicopter or the glider, right? That is the inner cravings and the desire of a human, is the feeling to feel, the desire to feel important, right? That's the desire. Okay, so that's how the civilization was possible, right? And do you know about Charles Dickens? I think many of you know about Charles Dickens, right? So he was a novelist, right? He was a novelist, Charles Dickens, and he wrote novels. He wrote many novels. And why did he wrote so many novels? Have you ever wondered why he wrote so many novels? Charles Dickens wrote so many novels because by writing novels, he used to get that feeling of importance, right? That's the reason Charles Dickens wrote so many novels and he became very popular. So this feeling of importance also drives man to accomplish great feat, which is unimaginable at times, right? Then have you ever wondered why do people build big houses than actually they need? For example, you see sometime people staying in a 4 BHK apartment, only two people or three people, and a 4 BHK, 5 BHK apartment, just like just like a palace, right? Why do people need to stay in such a big apartment? Have you ever wondered? Have you ever thought about it? Because the desire to be great, the desire to feel important in the society, the desire of that aristocratic feeling, that comes that yes, I am special, I am important, right? I am someone, right? That desire is why you see so many people, you see people purchasing big houses, right? Palatial homes. They're staying in palatial homes, right? Why do people want to wear the latest styles? Why do people want to wear the latest styles? Why do we want to drive the latest cars? Right? Why do we want to talk about our children, about the accomplishments of our children to others? Right? Why do we want to talk about them? Oh, my child is such and such. My child has stood first in the class. My child has stood first in the singing competition or dancing competition. Look here, my child has got admission to University of Oxford for his masters. Right? Why do we like to talk about that? Because of this feeling of importance, my dear friend, right? The desire to be important, the desire to be great, right? Then the author talks about, he talks about the titles, right? He talks about the titles. His Royal Highness. We say, so when we address to people of royal families, we say sometimes say His Royal Highness, Yours Excellency, right? And sometimes we also refer to people as Mr. Gopal Krishnan, right? Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, right? So why do we use those titles, right? Rahul sir, for example. Why do we say sir, Rahul sir? Because of the feeling of importance, because we want to ascribe that importance to that person. When we say Mr. Gopalakrishnan, we, of course, by saying that Mr., we are ascribing importance to that person. Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, by saying that Shri, we are ascribing importance to that person, right? Yeah, that's how. And I also want to quote. Also want to bring about this feeling of importance is a big thing, right? For example, we all know that that stadium, the cricket stadium in Gujarat, right? The biggest cricket stadium. What is the name of that stadium? The name of that stadium is Narendra Modi Stadium, right? Why it is named after Narendra Modi, right? The Prime Minister of India, right? So it is because of this desire of feeling important, because that person, Narendra Modi, who is the Prime Minister of India, he wants to feel important. Right, and because of this desire of feeling important, that stadium, the name of that stadium is Narendra Modi Stadium, my dear friend. So you see how this desire to feel important is very, very crucial, is very, very crucial inside and innate in our nature, right? So this is very, very important. It's not only with him, but there are many other people. Rohit Sharma stand, right? Recently we had a Rohit Sharma stand. Why do we have a Rohit Sharma stand? Sachin Tendulkar stand, right? And so that's the desire of feeling important, right? It's a great moment for the family of the corresponding people, right? Also, I would like to. The author also mentions, that in the year of 1921, the author mentions that the president, the Andrew Carnegie, who was the owner of the U.S. Steel, he paid $1 million per year in 1921 to Charles Schwab, right? Charles Schwab, which is into it should be almost like 8 crore per year in 1921. 8 crore he used to pay per year in 1921, annual salary of 8 crore in 1921 to Charles Schwab, who was the president of US Steel, right? Why he used to pay, why did Andrew Carnegie paid so much money to Charles Schwab? 8 crore per year in 1921, almost 100 years back, right? Why he used to pay? Does Charles Schwab knew about the manufacture of steel? Was he technically very competent person? He was not so technically competent person, but under him, people were much more talented technically. They knew how to manufacture the steel. Charles Schwab didn't knew much about the manufacture of steel. Then why was Charles Schwab paid so much money? because he knows the fundamental technique of dealing with people. He knows how to arouse enthusiasm among the people. He knows how to appreciate the people, how to encourage the people. He knows he never criticizes the people, right? He never criticizes them, but gives them enthusiasm, appreciation, encouragement. Because criticism kills ambition, my dear friend. So, criticism, if I criticize somebody, then it kills the ambition of that person, right? So it is always good to to praise people. If you see any good thing happening around you, praise that. And if you see bad thing happening, do not criticize that, but try to show the correct way. If you see good thing happening, praise it. If you see bad things happening, do not criticize and try to rectify that. Try to show the correct path. Again, in a very gentle way, of course. Right. That's something we need to keep in mind. Right. So, what was the success? What was the success of Charles Schwab? Charles Schwab was successful because he praised his associates publicly and privately. So, you need to praise people, right? Publicly as well as privately. We need to praise people for all their accomplishments, for all the achievements that they have done, right? But there's a fundamental difference. This fundamental difference between appreciation and flattery, right? What is the difference between appreciation and flattery, my dear friend? What is appreciation? Appreciation is sincere, right? Appreciation is sincere. While appreciating people, you are highlighting the good points. Flattery is also you are highlighting the good points. Then what is the difference between appreciation and flattery, right? Appreciation, when we appreciate someone, right, it is sincere, it is comes from the heart, it is unselfish, and it is universally admired, right? So it is something sincere, it comes from the heart, it is unselfish, and it is universally admired, right? And whereas on the other hand, flattery is something which is insincere, right? Which doesn't comes from the heart, which is insincere, and it is selfish, and it is universally condemned, right? It is insincere. It is basically trying to evil machination. You're trying to get something out of that person by flattering that person. That should not be the case. The author says that we should not take flattery into account. Flattery is not something we are going to do. We are going to appreciate people, and we are going to do it in sincerely. We are going to do it earnestly, right? Sincerely, from the heart, unselfish, and universally admired, my dear friend. Okay, so think. So how basically we can do it? So author says that we need to think basically of the good points of others, right? What are the strong points? What are the good points? Highlight it. Always highlight it, right? So that makes the other person feel good, and that makes the other person do much better in his work, right? Whatever work in his endeavor, right? The same thing with the children, right? Praising our children. Suppose you see a good report card. Let's say, for example, your child has got good marks in one of the subject. Let's say might be a general knowledge subject. Praise the child. Praise the child, right? For example, your child has baked a cake, a good cake, right? Praise him, appreciate the child, right? For example, your child has built a bird house, for example. Appreciate the child for building it. For example, your child has built a Lego structure, right? A thoughtful Lego structure he has built to completion. Appreciate that child, right? So that he will be feeling encouraged, right? He will feel the accomplishment, right? And for example, how much do we appreciate people, right? So if we look into, for example, you go to a restaurant, right? And you like a dish. Do you ever try to appreciate the chef who prepared the dish? Do we ever try to do that? Very less. I don't think out of 100, I don't think in 99 cases we do that, but we have to. The author says we have to, right? We should, because that person has prepared a very good dish, right? So we should appreciate the chef, right? So in our interpersonal relations, right, that's all our associations of our human beings with human beings, and deep inside resides the hunger for appreciation, right? Ralph Waldo Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, another philosopher, he says that every man I meet is superior in some way, in that I learn of him. Every man I meet is superior in some way, in that I learn of him. Right? And then he talks about then the author talks about that. Do we need to think of our accomplishments and our achievements? No, we should not think of our accomplishments or achievements, but we need to think of other person's good points. We need to think the good points of other persons. We should not flatter anybody. We need to give a genuine, sincere appreciation. We have to be hearty in approbation and lavish in praise. Right? If we can do that, people will cherish our words and repeat them over a lifetime. Right? People will cherish our words and repeat them over a lifetime, repeat them years after we have forgotten them. Right? They repeat them year after year. Yeah. So that is the fundamental technique, one of the fundamental technique of handling people, and that is our principle too, is that give honest and sincere appreciation. Right? So we need to give honest and sincere appreciation to people, because it is number one, it is the basic a feeling, an urge of a person to feel important, and we have to acknowledge that, and we have to do it sincerely. We need to appreciate people sincerely in every walks of human endeavor. For example, I am walking down the road. I see the people, the housekeeping staff cleaning and sweeping the floor and making the streets clean. Appreciate that person, right? Appreciate that person, because that person has, in the morning, he has left his family and he has left everything, and he has come and doing his work and giving his best. Yeah. So we, as a responsible citizen, needs to appreciate that person, right? And it should be genuine and sincere. And as we told, like, you go to a restaurant, you sit in a restaurant, you have a very nice meal, appreciate the chef, right? For example, you get your domestic help. For example, your domestic help comes every day, cleans up the house, and makes it neat and clean. Appreciate your domestic help. How many times do we do that? Right? We take help from the people, but seldom we appreciate them. Right? So that is what the author tells here, that if we want to deal with people, right, one of the fundamental techniques we have to learn is that we have to give sincere and honest appreciation. Right? Not flattery, appreciation. That is something we need to give. So that's the essence of today's chapter, and that is the principle two of the part one, fundamental techniques in handling people. The first principle was don't criticize, condemn, and complain. The second principle is give honest and sincere appreciation. That's bring the end of today's chapter 2, and again next we will see chapter 3 of the fundamental techniques of handling people. Keep watching this section to learn more about this book, the How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a very, very important book, and this is very good for the personality development of an individual, and very good for every individual should read this book, because they should know how to deal with the society, how to deal with the people around themselves, and how they can improvise themselves. Right? So keep watching Inspire to Live, my dear friend. Inspire to Live is the channel that the basic agenda and the basic motto of this channel is that to inspire others to live a wonderful life. Right? To inspire others to live a life where that person can develop their potential to the fullest extent. right? And that is the motto of this channel: like, share, and subscribe, so that everybody knows and understand the mission of it. Thank you. Keep watching Inspire to Live, and let me know in comments how did you felt about today's about the today's session. Thank you. See you again.